Welcome in, Bronco Nation. What a game against Utah. That was very fun to watch for me. I really enjoy the close games like that. And honestly, overall, we played pretty well. There were definitely some things that can be improved that we'll talk about today, but I thought it was a pretty good game to watch overall. So we had some bad calls in that. Everybody's kind of talking about the bad calls. You know, we still fought hard through those and were able to come away with the win. And that was one thing I was really impressed with. I felt like, the Boise State mentality of not giving up and continuing to fight was there. At one point, we were down by like, what, 14, 17 points, something like that. We were down by quite a bit. And you never really saw the mentality give up on the sidelines. They were pushing through the whole time. And I think that was a big part of why we won this game. So really glad to see that. Irby had a really good game on defense. As we all know, that interception should have been upheld. That defensive pass interference was total BS. But, like I said, they fought through it. They fought through it. So the things we're going to talk about today are mostly on the offensive side, since that's been a big discussion as of late with Maddox out, with the wide receiver core kind of having some drops and stuff. Marshall, unfortunately, was a little rusty coming back from his time off. Had some big drops that hopefully we'll see improve in this next week. The first thing I want to talk about is Cutforth. So there's been a big discussion lately about who we're going to play going into the next game, Madsen or Cutforth, if Madsen is healthy. I honestly am pretty torn on that. I think Madsen is going to be a little bit rusty, which scares me. He already kind of had a little bit of a tendency this year to throw behind people and a little bit low, while Cutforth tends to throw a little bit high. So the first thing we're going to look at here is one clip of Cutforth and what I mean by him throwing a little high. We've seen this quite a bit this game, but this here is a perfect example. Just right over his target, and it's something that we see quite a bit. That we just can't be having if we want to have a chance this year at the championship. So those overthrows, if Cutforth starts, need to be cleaned up. If he can clean those up, he's going to be an amazing quarterback, because overall he reads the defense really well, I thought. But I will say he also makes some really clutch throws too. So we're going to take a look at one of those real quick here. And I think some of these throws, they're tight. He gets them right into tight coverage, but puts them right where they need to be effective. So here's a good example of that. He's on the run and throws a really nice, fairly deep pass and gets it right between. He did a good job of slotting it right in where it needed to be. So that was one example of that. And then we have another one right afterwards here that I thought was another good example of him slipping it into tight coverage and getting it right where it needs to be. I mean, two guys following. If he had been a little bit behind, that wouldn't have been complete. It could have even been an interception if it was a little, further behind than we would have wished. But he led the guy very nicely. And led him in a way where, only he could get it. It was a great throw. So we're seeing him make some really clutch throws like this. We're going to look at a couple more really good passes that I was really quite impressed with during this game. So that's another one that I really liked, This one, I'm going to slow it down just a little bit here. It was kind of right into tight coverage. And I'm impressed with the way he was able to avoid this guy and slide it in a way that, I mean, it was a corner shot, There wasn't much room for error on this, really. It was either out of bounds or in this guy's ability to block it, and he slid it right in there and got the first down. And finally, we're going to look at one more here. And once again, I mean, he slides it right where it needs to be. Tight end cuts underneath and right into his hand. So really good job at getting those clutch throws, even though he did have some inaccuracies with throwing over on this game that I was a little bit frustrated by. He also made some really tight ones. And if he can wrangle in the overthrows, I mean, I think he could be really, really good. So here's a really good example of a few things. Him being able to read the defense better and being able to tighten up the deep throws more and more every game, which is going to be key if, as we go forward. So very accurate deep pass, which is something he's struggled with a little bit. I feel like most of his deep passing is where he's had the most inaccuracies throughout the year. So we're starting to see that tighten up. And if we watch here, Caples is currently being pretty much two-manned here. He's being double teamed. And we have another guy over here that has a possibility of being open. Cutforth is checking around, looks at the guy on the far left, determines he's not open, starts scanning the field, and then sees Caples getting out in front of that two-man coverage as this guy breaks off to cover the middle wide receiver. And he is able to read that right away and get it right to where it needs to be. So really good job of him reading the defenses, I think. That's just something he's always kind of been good at, but he struggled with other things that made that harder to really show off. His pressure awareness wasn't very good in the last couple games. We'll look at that here in a second. Those deep accuracies, in past games, he might have overthrown this one. So all of that we're seeing improve more and more and more. This next one I want to look at is another example of the deep accuracy. We all know which one it is. It's the one to Quentin Brown, which I'm really impressed with him. He's going to be one of our star receivers, I think, going forward. And just chucks it nice and deep, right to where it needs to be. Hit him perfectly in stride. And he's able to take this one to the house. So, really impressed with his ability to start to dial in those deep throws. He's getting more and more comfortable with it. And he's got the arm for it. He's got a little bit better arm than Maddox does as far as these really deep passes. And now that he's starting to dial in that accuracy, it makes him, a really good weapon that we can use. Overall, I'm really impressed with his ability to grow. Every single week, it gets better and better. One of the things that the first 3 games he played in, even going back to Air Force, one of the things I was harping on that he really struggled with was his pressure awareness. That was just killing us. He would not see pressure and take sacks, or when he did see pressure, he would start frantically scrambling, not knowing where to go, and sometimes even run right into another rusher. He just really wasn't very aware of the pressure that was around him and how to avoid it effectively. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a difference in that. So we're going to take a quick look at one of the plays that I think exemplifies that. So right here we see him drop back, and immediately we have some pressure getting through. He identifies it and slips to the outside of the blocker. So the blocker is now able to keep that guy out, slips up in the pocket. And that whole time he's scrambling, let me go back. He does a really great job of staying where he needs to be effective and get the time to make the throw. And then Sherrod does a great job of gaining that first down. Sherrod had a really good game this game as well. We'll see a couple of his plays here in a moment. Another really good one, I think, that exemplifies his ability to avoid the pressure is this one here. So he drops back. We've got a couple guys getting by on the edges. He gets right in and Cutforth identifies it, avoids the pressure, and makes an amazing throw on the run, once again to Sherrod, and just puts it right where it needs to be while avoiding pressure and while on the run. And one of the things I want to point out that I think has really improved with his pressure awareness is in the past when he saw that pressure, he'd be looking at the guys running at him and not, frantically not knowing what to do, just trying to find holes. And he was no longer looking downfield in those situations. What we see here is he does a great job watch his head. As he's avoiding this pressure, he is looking downfield the whole time and able to still read the defense, makes a pretty clutch throw in between, if you look here, kind of right in between these two guys, and hit Sherrod on the run. And, that just shows how much improvement we have seen from him throughout the last couple games. I think that the pressure awareness is something that exemplifies the type of improvements we're seeing on a week by week basis from him. That and the ability to start to slowly dial in that deep accuracy. Now, the next thing he needs to work on to be a really great quarterback is to just stop the overthrows. Those overthrows are killing us. And if all of those overthrows he made would have been right on point, I mean, we might have even scored a couple more touchdowns. We saw from that first one, it was a touchdown play, and he ended up overthrowing the guy and not making it. And I believe we had to kick a field goal in that instance. So things like that will turn 3 points into 7 points and can make or break the game. I mean, just that one play alone, this game, instead of being 26-25, it would have been 30-25. So really, I think that's the next big thing that we need to see from Cutforth going forward. Hey, if you guys are liking this video, please share it, subscribe, like, comment, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. We're a brand new channel, and we're trying to grow so that we can continue to do it. Another thing that he's been doing really well that stood out to me, especially in this game, is his ability to fake on screens and draw the attention of the defense to somewhere where he's not going to be throwing. And he knows that from the beginning, but he makes it seem like, you know, he's going to the other side. So this is a really good example of that. We have the running back coming in motion. You can see he immediately turns to the running back and not even just looks at him, fully turns to give the impression that he's going to be throwing a running back screen. And we even have a screen developing over here. And this is also great play design by Potter. We have a great running back screen look over here. And if we go back one more time, watch, we have both of these, the linebacker and the safety, being drawn to that side. And then he last minute turns, and guess what? It was a fake. He's actually screening over here. So we have like a double screen look going on, and it's really effective. And Wagner is able to drive all the way up for a touchdown. So this play, I mean, a big part of what made this play successful was Wagner's effort, but another big part was Cutforth's ability to sell the fake screen and just overall play design. All of this came together in this play and was just a beautiful one to look at. So great fake. These guys roll over. Screen pops out the other way. We have this blocker run up to block the one safety that could get him. Misses the block a little bit, but Wagner doesn't care. He's able to get by him and get in. Now that leads me to the next point I want to go over is Wagner's effort, man. In this game, his effort was impeccable. It was the whole game he was driving for extra yards, and it made a big difference. So this is one play where we saw that. Once again, jumps out, makes the catch, breaks the first tackle, gets the block, jumps over that guy, keeps driving while he's getting tackled enough to get the touchdown. That is just such great effort and really nice to see. And this is what people mean by the Bronco mentality, man. Not giving up when you get, you know, hit by the first or second guy. He just keeps driving those legs. And Wagner all game did this. So let's look at a couple more. Right before that play, he had another one. So Wagner pops out to the left, gets the pass, does a great job of keeping his balance and breaking that first tackle, and continues to fight upfield. And even when it looks like he's closed in by 3 guys at this point, and he's probably looking at him saying, okay, I'm probably, like, look at these 3. He's like, I'm probably not going to keep going. He doesn't just run out of bounds. He keeps driving, and he trucks through this dude to try to get as much as he can. Really impressive. The other one I want to look at is just a little bit further into the game. So Wagner does a nice little curl route here. He gets this. A lot of players would have gone down right there, and it would have been like a 3 or 4 yard gain. But he keeps driving those feet, keeps driving, and gets a couple more. Just his ability to keep driving the legs and not give up on a play is something, you know, that I really like and something I look forward to seeing more. I mean, I know Louder's pretty much out for this year because he's going to be going probably to the draft. And honestly, like, we're not going to miss a beat, I don't think, because as good as Louder was, Wagner is just as good and has that effort mentality that I think the Broncos need. Now, I want to address the running backs real quick as well. The first thing I want to address is Sire Gaines. I think he has a big problem that needs addressed by the running back coach. It's something I have seen him do all the way back to his high school highlight tapes, and that is holding the ball in one hand through contact. This is something that he likes to do so he can use that extra arm to stiff arm and push people off of him as he's trying to break tackles. However, quite a few times this year, this has resulted in fumbles. And it's something that we just can't have going forward. And I think the biggest issue there is him not holding the ball with two hands through contact. When we're getting into contact situations, he needs to cover up that ball with both hands like they do in practice. We see it in the practice videos. And yet, when he gets in a game, he sticks it in one arm and even through contact, like right there, I get it, right? But right here, he's about to truck this dude and like I said, tries to use that hand to push him out of the way. He needs to be double covering because he doesn't and he fumbles the ball. And these have killed us in multiple games this year. Sire Gaines is a great running back. He's a great power back that's able to get those extra yards. And part of that is the way he stiff arms people. But he needs to understand when there's some contact coming and he needs to cover up the ball. Because this look right here, man, we have seen this over and over and over this year. And it's getting to a point where it's like, when are they going to do something about it? Because I see him trying to teach them to cover up with two hands, and yet he keeps holding it in one and fumbling it, and it's just starting to kill me. It's starting to be something where I'm like, every time Sire grabs the ball, I'm worried about it. And you should never have that feeling with a running back, you know? He needs to cover up the ball or do some grip exercises and some arm exercises. If you're gonna hold it with one hand, man, you gotta you gotta hold it and make sure you're not gonna let it go. So that's one of my biggest complaints right now with Sire Gaines. Ultimately, he had a pretty good game. It's just, man, those fumbles are starting to really rack up. And they're starting to kill me. So he needs to work on that a little bit, whether it's ball protection with one hand or whether it's learning when to cover up when he's getting into the later play contact. And then we're going to look at Malik Sherrod. Like we saw earlier, he's had a really good game. He had some really nice plays. We're going to take a look at a few of my favorite ones personally from this game. So this one here, a nice fake handoff. Grabs it, cuts back behind this blocker, and we have another blocker coming. So that cutback was really pretty crucial. I mean, I think some people might look at this like, oh, he should have just kept running and kept the speed going. But honestly, if he had gone this way, he would have gotten tackled by this guy and not gotten much of a gain. You know, this blocker is coming. We have a blocker here. By cutting back there and allowing this blocker to do his job and then getting behind this blocker, all of a sudden that small gain turns into a much bigger one. And if he had broken that, that would have been a first down for sure. This guy did a great job at tackling him on that. So that was one play that I was really impressed with. Great awareness and ball vision, which I think when he gets in open space, Malik Sherrod has that. Sometimes up the middle, not so much. And then here's another one. Hands it off to him. He breaks right through a wide open gap and does a great job of getting to the outside. Now, this is a little bit late in the second quarter, so right before the half, and they're trying to save clock as they drive down the field to try to get this last score. And Sherrod knows that and runs straight towards the out of bounds to try to stop the clock. So not only is it a good run, but it's really good awareness by him to try to get out of bounds and stop the clock. And I think that's one of those things you see in those 60-year seniors, you know. They have a little bit more of that game time awareness than some of the earlier guys. But really good job, you know. Makes a couple guys miss here, uses his speed to get past people. And then we already saw earlier some of those really great receiving catches that he had. And those catches, I think, are something where as the year has gone on, we've seen them use him more and more like that. And it's something that he really excels at. He's not so good up the middle, but he's really good out in open space and as a receiving back. They're starting to realize that and utilize him a little bit more wisely in that position. Now I want to look at one more with our third running back, everybody's favorite right now, Dylan Riley. Dylan Riley had a really good game overall, and I think this play exemplifies it. This has some really good awareness, ball vision, um, just a little bit of everything shown in here. So there's not much of a gap here, but we can see a gap developing right here. So he's going to take that gap, makes one guy miss here, cuts to the outside so that this guy can't get him, and also it runs this guy into this blocker. So if we jump back just a little bit, we have one guy being blocked and we have a guy wide open. If he had gone up the middle, he would have for sure gotten tackled. He does a great job of angling so that this blocker can actually kind of slow both of them down enough that he can get out into the open. Really great run. Like I said, I think this shows really good ball carrier vision by Dylan Riley. It's one of the things that I think he excels at. One of the things that makes him kind of a little bit of a standout in this class right now is he's able to see the gaps and use the gaps, and he's got the speed to utilize it. So overall, I think really good game from Boise State. I was really happy with the improvements we saw, especially from Cutforth. Every game he gets better and better and better. I think if he can dial in those overthrows, I mean that he's going to be a really great quarterback. And we're seeing the improvement with some guys, like for instance Madsen this year. He had some issues where he was throwing behind people and kind of a little bit low on throws. And game to game, we never saw improvements. Now, a lot of people are saying that was due to his injury. And I think part of it probably was due to his injury. But at the same time, man, like if you can't make those throws with the injury, we should have had someone else in there a little bit earlier. Um, and I think that goes back to something I've been saying for a while now. I think the coaches have kind of ignored the backups as far as developing them to a point where they were ready to come in. I mean, some of these issues like pressure awareness, with Cutforth, we knew that it was there. The coaches knew it was there. I mean, we saw it after Air Force when Maddox first went out for that drive or two. We saw it arise right there. We saw the pressure awareness lacking, and when he saw it, he backed right up into a guy. He was frantic, wasn't looking downfield, was scrambling to the wrong areas instead of out into the open field. There was an issue there. And the coaches did not address that, even though we knew Maddox was hurt. And if Maddox went down again, he was going to be the guy. They still did not work on that aspect all the way through until all of a sudden he became the starter and he was able to start learning by himself through game reps. And yeah, game reps are very, very valuable to a quarterback to learn those types of things. But at the same time, I stand by my thought that the coaches need to be trying to replicate those game decisions and that game pressure so that he can learn from it a little bit more in practice, especially if that's your go-to guy as a backup and your leader is already injured and already at risk of going out for the season. We should have been working on that. Like we should have been getting him ready so that if he did need to come in, he was prepared. And I just feel like that didn't really happen until the necessity was there. And then we had a couple bad games because of it for him to, work that out. So that's a big complaint I had with the coaches this year. Um, I just think it's something that we need to look at going forward, not just with quarterbacks, but I mean with every position. Let's look at defensive backs, cornerbacks, and safeties and stuff at the beginning of the year. We had some guys in there that, like Devon Banks, that weren't necessarily executing, and we had Mickey sitting as a backup who is much better, a much better player overall, and yet they weren't playing him. And it's like I kind of understand that you have to earn your spot and all of that, but it's like why did they not see that Mickey was better in earning his spot throughout spring ball and throughout practice, I feel like that should have been picked up on much earlier, and Mickey should have been out there a lot earlier. And I think that goes back to the same point. I think they have a tendency to stick with their starters and like give their starters a little more leeway and a little more trust than the backups. Even when like as soon as Mickey went in, we all saw as fans that Mickey was better. Like we just saw him all over the field. We saw him being right where he needed to be, stripping the ball out of guys' hands. And I don't know. It just kind of astounds me that the coaches didn't see that kind of stuff a little bit earlier. So I think all over the field, that is something that they need to be thinking about going into next year. You know, are the guys that are starting truly the best guys we have? We have some amazing guys that are coming off of a red shirt. For instance, we have one guy, Bickham, who's a great 2025 recruit at cornerback. And he was a 4-star recruit. And when you look at his film, he's a great cornerback. He's got some great stuff on his high school footage. And I think they were probably saving that red shirt for him, and that's why he didn't play this year. But going into next year, I wonder, are guys like that we know are good that are coming in, are they going to be able to have an opportunity to take those starting spots if they are truly better? Because we saw from Mickey this year, it took him quite a while to earn that spot when personally, I feel like he should have earned it quite a bit earlier in spring ball. That's something I'm going to be looking for going into next year. So overall, really good game at Utah State. Very entertaining to watch. I'm really excited for the upcoming game on Friday. We're going to be talking about that more in our next video, and we'll see you next time. Go Broncos.